Hello everyone, welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. Today we're gonna have a look at Yae Miko's ability, how to use her weapons, and artifacts you can farm for her, at least the best ones. And let's get started. She has a 3-hit combo normal attacks you can spam quite easily. The animations are fast, there's little delay between each 3-hit combo, so you can just spam that. The range is short though, so you need to be close range to your enemies. I think that's the most range you can have, like this much. That applies to her charged attacks as well. They will strike the ground 5 or 6 times, and they will deal damage in front of her. You can actually cancel the animation of the full charge attack. As you can see, it only happens as soon as the Electro Fox reaches the apex of the animation, so you can jump out of it and do like a dodge or whatever. Yes, you can actually dodge them, but stamina consumption is too high, so I don't recommend that. Also, if you do it too early, the fox will just run away and deal no damage, so keep that in mind. Moving on to her elemental skill, it has 3 charges. They will link to each other, increasing the level of each mode, starting from level 1, which looks like that. There we go. Looks like this. Then we have a level 2 that looks like this, with 1 ring orbiting the central mode. And then we have a level 3 that has 2 rings. If you have Constellation 2, you can get up to level 4, and that I think adds another ring, so you can let me know in the comments if you have Constellation 2. These modes will basically attack the enemies periodically, striking them with a lightning bolt. They will also regenerate 5 elemental particles, and these energy orbs are always kept at 5, so you cannot have more than 5 particles even if you have all the modes on the ground. You can though get more particles just by killing the enemies, or through the use of the bonus weapons. You just need to build a little bit of crit rate on your characters to generate the elemental particles. To help with the energy problems, also keep in mind that Electro Resonance gives you 100% chance to generate an electro elemental particles every 5 seconds. So this is another way of increasing the amount of energy particles you can generate. Okay, then we have her elemental burst, called Tenko Kenshin. This will summon a lightning bolt on the ground, defined by this multiplier here. And if you have any of the Seishu Sakuras on the ground, up to 3, she will also summon a Tenko Thunderbolt, which will deal this amount of damage right here. So if I just use my ultimate like this, with no modes on the ground, it will only strike once, dealing, as we already said, the skill damage. But if you have any of these modes on the ground, I have 3 Seishu Sakuras on the ground. If I use my ultimate now, with some of the first standard mode, forward by 3. And that also refills my elemental charges, elemental skill charges, because I have this talent that for each Seishu Sakura destroyed gives you 1 more charge back, basically. So what you want to do is just have your E's on the ground all the time, and spam your ult if you have it. Also, if you put the Seishu Sakuras on the ground in a straight line, only the one in the middle will be a level 3, while the ones at the end will only be level 2, so they will deal less damage. Let's now have a look at some teammates. So, first of all, if you have Raiden, she's one of the best characters to use with her, because they complement each other nicely. Basically, her burst will always charge Raiden's Shogun burst as well, and while she is dealing the damage, she will recharge her burst and deal off-field DPS through the Seisho Sakuras. You can also use Fischl with her, so you have 2 off-field DPS, and you can use, for example, Child, or Mona, or Kokomi, or even Shincho to apply Hydro to the enemies and taser them with these 2 Electro off-field characters. Then you want to use an animal support. You have Jin, she's one of the best animal support because she's also a healer. But you can do that with Sayu as well. You can also use Sukuros to buff everyone's elemental mastery, or Kazuha to buff everyone elemental damage. You can also use Bennett as a healer plus support buffer. What you can also do is use Yae to deal overload to enemies, or using Zhongli to debuff enemies through his shield, and just to be safer. And of course, Sara. Kushu Sara is definitely the best buffer, especially if you have Constellation 6 on her, since her Constellation 6 will increase the crit damage of your electro characters by 60%. Another good teammate for her is definitely Mona. She can use, for example, the Threading Tails and give her a 48% more damage. She will also increase her elemental burst damage and her elemental skill damage by using her burst. She will also apply Hydro to enemies, so she can enable electrocharge reactions. She's definitely a good character in this team. Moving on to her weapons, we have, of course, Kagura's Verity, which is the best option, definitely. It's a good weapon, has a nice passive, an amazing actually substat, which is crit damage, and it basically gives you up to 36% more elemental skill damage for 16 seconds. And this has no cooldown, so you can always have this buff up with Yae Miko. And also, if you have all the 3 stacks, we get 12% elemental damage. You can also use the Skyward Atlas because it has great stats. And the passive works, it's definitely more damage. You can also use the Lost Prayer, but for me that is just a stat stick for crit rate, so I will not recommend that one. Then we have the new weapon, which is the Old-Sworn Eye. It's actually a good weapon. It definitely looks cool. Gives you attack percent and also a lot of energy recharge, which you will definitely be needing if you don't plan on using any other electro character on the party. Then we have the Solar Pearl Battle Pass option. It's definitely a good weapon. If you happen to have a lot of refinements on this weapon, gives you up to 40% more damage on your elemental skill and elemental burst, and also on your normal attacks, which is always nice bonus. A great option for her is the Witsit. It gives you crit damage, has a nice amount of base attack, and the passive is actually a nice one, even if it has 20 seconds of cooldown. Can give you 120% attack, 96% elemental damage, or 480 elemental mastery at Refinement 5. Refinement 1 it's a bit less, but it's definitely a great damage increase. The craftable options are limited. We have the Prototype Ember, which is definitely the worst of the 4. We have the Map Hammer, which is probably the best option, and gives you elemental mastery that increases your elemental skill damage, and gives you elemental damage bonus every time Yae Miko triggers an elemental reaction. So you keep that in mind. This is actually a good weapon if you want to have a free-to-play option. Definitely a good weapon. Then we have the Frostbearer. It is definitely a good stat stick. Gives you attack percent, has a nice base attack, and also summons periodically some of these icicles that will deal a little bit of damage. Finally, we have the Akushin Ring. It's definitely a good weapon. Also looks good on Yae Miko because it's Inazuma themed. It gives you energy recharge as a substat, has a high base attack, and basically will increase your party members' elemental damage every time they trigger an electro-related elemental reaction by 10%, which is definitely a good buff. Let's talk about the artifacts now. I'm using Wanderer's Troop and Gladiator Finale. This gives me 80 Elemental Mastery and 18% more attack. And Elemental Mastery will increase your elemental skill damage by 0.15% for each point of Elemental Mastery. So that gives me 12% more damage on my elemental skill. You can also use, for example, Shimenawa's Reminiscence, that gives you another 18% more attack. You can use Thundering Fury, which will give you 50% electro damage bonus. I don't think it's worth having the Force Beast set, since this only reduces your elemental skill cooldown, and she already has a low elemental skill cooldown. You can use Thunder Soother definitely, but this is super conditional. You can not always have electro applied to enemies. And finally, you can also use the Noblesse set that gives you more burst damage and will also increase the attack of all the characters in your party by 20%, which is definitely a nice buff. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, I hope everything was clear, and if you have any doubt you can let me know in the comments below. I will be testing the weapons I talked about in the video, and I will bring the results in the next one. Until then, stay safe and bye bye!